Okay, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Kristen Williams with Dealer Pro Training. I'm our dealer development manager. Today I have Ken Barnes, our director of sales, on with me as well. And we're excited about this week. We've been doing this now. We're in our 6th week. We thank all of you that have been with us from day one. You've given us some terrific feedback. And some of the feedback we got last week was that you wanted these to be longer. So this week we've got a full hour. If you can't hang on for that full hour, these are archived on our YouTube channel. I've got that at the end of the presentation, but I'll go ahead and tell you now, if you want to jot it down, just go to youtube.com, type in Dealer Pro Training, and that'll take you directly to our channel. And you can see our first series, which was Fixed Ops Management and Leadership in Challenging Times. We did 5 weeks of that series, and that's archived there. And then we are shifting gears this week, and we want to be proactive and start moving forward. You know, as folks are starting to reopen, get their staffs back in order, as well as our customers. Let's reboot. Let's talk about the positive things that we can do to drive more traffic. So that's what we're going to focus on this week, is driving traffic through your service drive. And Ken is going to review the 4 essentials to achieving 100% service absorption. Bill Horgan went through those first 3 last week. We didn't get time to get to the 4th one. So Ken's going to take it from here. Take it from that 3rd one and do some review and dig into the 4th essential this week. So as we've been doing every week, we share with you what we find out in the industry. So this week I found some really great content at the NADA.org website. And if you have not gone there for the e-learning modules, I strongly recommend you go there. Just go to NADA.org and you're going to look for e-learning or webinars that are listed there. And they have a series called the Lifeline series, which is directly related to coronavirus and so on and so forth. Not a lot of service and parts content, but as with NADA, typically, you know, their biggest concern is legal and regulatory items, and so they do cover a lot of that. But there are some tips and things with regard to service and parts that may be beneficial to you as well. So we've got a large audience on this call. We've got dealers, GMs, and we've got service and parts professionals, as well as some vendors. So take advantage of that NADA website, but Dealer Pro is here for more specific process-driven scripts that you can use, really detailed information to help you start driving more traffic through the drive and get sales back up where we all want them to be. So a few things that I found this week that I thought were worth sharing, and these were from Rhett Reichert, the president at NADA. Happens to be an owner of the Reichert Automotive Group here in Columbus, Ohio, about 20 minutes from our home office. And he said, for the dealers and GMs on this call, just something positive to talk about. He said 1.8 million leases are coming back due in the next 120 days in the US. So lots of activity on the sales side, which is great news. And then on the service side, he talked about pickup and delivery in service departments becoming the norm. He said they have increased exponentially in his auto group, and he expects that this will be the new norm moving forward for most stores. If you remember last week, we said that 32% of service departments were already offering free pickup and delivery prior to this current situation we're in. And so there's lots of opportunity for those of you that are not offering this service to get on board and really start to think about what that process looks like and how to better serve your customers. They want it, they need it, and they like it. So let's be proactive and start executing those plans now. We're going to help you with that. How quickly does a typical service department respond to customer requests? I thought this was a fantastic study that they had. They didn't cite it, so I don't know where they got these statistics. However, when you think about your customers getting responses and getting their needs met, whether it's over the phone or an email, 43% of customers got a response within 24 hours. 29% got a response within an hour. And this is the staggering number. 20% of your service customers are getting their responses resolved within minutes. That's where our CSI goes up. That's where we build our customer retention, is by providing the solutions to their needs, the answers to their questions within minutes of them calling, within minutes of them emailing. So take a look at your own operation. How are you serving your customers in this way? Whether it's over the phone, whether it's on email, you know, you've got some different questions that are coming across those phones now. So you got to prepare for what are our answers to those questions. We got to be able to be available for your customers to get what they need in a timely manner. And then 5% within a week and 3% did not respond. All right, so every week we've pulled out a quote, and I love this quote. I'm going to apply this to my own personal and professional life. I've never seen this quote before, but I hope you like it as much as I did. It says, "A year from now, you may wish that you had started today, whatever it is." First thing that comes to mind is, losing weight, or we all think of that, eating better, things like that. But in your service and parts operation, what are you going to wish that you had jumped on board with this season? We've given you plenty of ideas in these last 5 weeks. And this week, we're going to give you some more. So really pick those one or two things that you think you can pull off. You can do it well, and it's going to make a huge impact with the way that you serve your customers. Start now. Let's not wait till next summer when something maybe becomes more of a problem. If free pickup and delivery is a direction for you to go in, then let's get it executed and implemented so that we can do it better than anybody else. All right, I thought these were fantastic videos. I came across these online. This is a Toyota dealer in Florida. And we've hammered away at your digital, strategy, right? We've talked several weeks now in a row about being better at video with your customers, whether you use YouTube, Zoom, Loom, whether you send it in an email or you send it in a text. I'm going to show you a video here where folks are using their own phone and FaceTiming customers. Do it now. And if you've got younger folks, I'm not trying to be discriminatory here because I'm not a younger folk per se, but if you've got younger advisors, folks that work in your dealership or in your service operation, tap into them. They know how to do this stuff. They know how to use this technology on their phones every day. I watch my college kids, create videos all the time. And so have them train your team how to do it and communicate with customers better. So let me show you this video. It's called How We're Keeping You Safe.
This uncertain time, we are standing strong and doing everything we can to protect the health of our community. As you can see, we disinfect every vehicle with hospital-grade cleaner before and after we service it. We are strictly following the guidance from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention to ensure a safe and healthful working environment. You can trust us to keep you and your loved ones safe. Southgate Toyota, the better way.
All right, I thought that was great. I loved how they had the sprayer to the beat of the music. Isn't it a big impact to see something and how it's done? Isn't it convincing? Don't you feel confident about coming to a store where you can see how they're actually disinfecting your vehicle, what that process looks like? He talks about it, that they do it before and after when they deliver back to the customer. So if you've told your customers on your website, in an email, face-to-face in the drive, now you need to show them. I want to show you another video from this same group.
Southgate Toyota is committed to protecting the health of our community, including clients and employees. Our service department has created a home pickup and delivery program for your safety and convenience. When you schedule a service appointment, we'll pick up your vehicle from your house, perform maintenance or repairs, and bring it back to you when we're finished. You can also complete the entire buying process for a new vehicle from your home. To get started, look through our inventory. Once you choose a vehicle, click Buy from Home. You will be able to see your payments and details. We have a chat tool that can guide you and respond to any questions in English and Spanish. We can also contact you through FaceTime or video call and explain any detail required by you. We will then deliver your new vehicle to your doorstep. In this uncertain time, we want you to know that we're still here for you. Our team is committed to help you with no physical contact required.
I think it's so impressive that you can see how their employees are wearing gloves, although I noticed on the sales side when they were FaceTiming, they didn't have them on. But in service, they had gloves on. The other gentleman even had a mask on. And we also want to add that to your list of things. Masks are becoming more common. Obviously, it's different across the country and in Canada, but it seems to be, at least in Ohio, that's a common practice, is to wear the mask. It gives people just a little bit more confidence. But I think those videos are terrific, and I would challenge any of our service and parts managers or directors out there or dealers to get a service video, true service video on what your free pickup and delivery process looks like. I think that would be fantastic. And if you do, I'd love to hear it and have you email it to me. All right, so reviewing these, we talked about these in the first 2 weeks, so we thought it was worth a refresher for you to, again, remind yourselves of some of the good practices that almost all stores are doing or should be doing in order to, again, ensure safety and build confidence in your customers that they can do business with you. So ask your customers to declutter their vehicles before you pick it up from them. Wear gloves and masks to pick up their vehicle. Provide the customer with a complete video of their complimentary MPI that you did via email or text. And I would say include people in that. Show your advisor's face. You don't want to just project that video onto the MPI sheet. People like looking at people talking about things. Phone, text, email, or video the customer to discuss proposed work and to get their approval on it. Processing credit card payments electronically and looking at things like Apple Pay, alternatives to having to exchange a credit card or a debit card in the drive. Spread employees across different shifts. This was something that NADA talked about in a few different details. Across different shifts and physical space, so you can extend your hours of operation. That way you don't have to hire anybody to cover those additional hours, especially if you're bringing in high-risk folks at a certain time of day, maybe first thing in the morning. And then wear gloves to return the vehicle, return their keys, and most folks are doing it this way. They're returning the keys and the receipt in a plastic bag back to the customer. All right, so we'll touch base here again at the end with a few more new ideas. I'm going to turn it over to Ken Barnes, our Director of Sales, and he's going to review with you the 4 essentials to 100% absorption.
Thanks, Kristen. Appreciate it. And let's see, I'm sorry, I need to get into my slideshow. Looks like, Kristen, right now I'm just viewing your screen. It's not on mine yet.
It shows that I'm viewing your screen. I can see your screen.
Okay.
It tells me I am viewing Ken's screen.
So there we go. Current slide. Got it going. Thanks. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the 4 essentials for achieving 100% service absorption. We covered the first 3 last week on our presentation. I do want to recap those first 3 and talk about what we feel like are some of the more important talking points. And then I'm going to go into details on the 4th essential. So first, let's talk about service absorption. What is the definition? The definition is the percentage of total dealership expenses less the new and used car sales department's variable expense that are absorbed by your fixed operations department's gross profit. So in other words, service and parts and body shop gross, the ability for them to cover all of the store's expenses minus new and used variable selling expense. So what does 100% service absorption mean to your dealership's profitability? Now, obviously, you talk to a dealer or GM, they would love to have 100% service absorption because that means that they would not have to sell a new or used car to basically keep the doors open and break even, right? And ultimately, it means no new or used vehicle sales dependency. So why is it important? The sales department is quite volatile and their profitability is very closely tied to the economy. When the economy is good, so are vehicle sales. But when the economy is poor, vehicle sales decline. Look back at 2008, 9, and 10, when we had a recession, car sales tanked, right? Well, you know what? Car sales are slowing down right now as well. I mean, I've talked to some stores that aren't off very much, like only 10 and 20%. However, I've talked to some stores that say they're off 50 and 60%. So right now, service absorption should be on everybody's mind, especially our service and parts managers. So in fixed ops, people tend to keep their vehicles longer during poor economic times and spend more on repairs and maintenance rather than buying or leasing another new or used vehicle. Very important right now. So the calculation, and I'm not going to go through the details. We did this last week. The thing that's important, though, is that line number 11. What is your monthly shortage? This is a calculation that I hope all of you have done, and if you haven't, I highly encourage you to do so. Basically, it's going to help you establish how much you are short in fixed operations gross profit to reach that 100% mark out there. And, you know, a lot of stores, quite honestly, are never going to achieve and or have a very hard time achieving 100% absorption. But you think about it, if you can increase it 10 percentage points, or better yet, even 15 or 20 percentage points, it will have a huge impact on your store and your ability to go through and weather the storm when sales aren't so great. So make sure that you do that if you haven't already. So essential number one, talking about controlling expenses. We need to make sure that we manage by measurement. So we want to compare this year's number versus last year's number. And you can do this in several areas. One, of course, is going to be your financial statement. So you want to go through and look at your expense section on your financial statement and compare the various expenses this year to last year. And I like to use same month versus same month. And you can also look at year to date versus year to date. The thing that's important to remember on this, though, is to actually look at the percentage of gross that expense represents. And the reason being is you could have an expense actually go up this year versus last year, but you know what? If my gross profit also went up by a higher number, then my percent of that expense could actually even be less. So it could be a good thing. So always make sure that you're looking at the percentages as well. Your dealer versus industry guides. NADA, NCM have some excellent guides out there. A lot of stores go through and actually are part of 20 groups and so forth. If you have those numbers, go through and compare yours to other stores as well as their guides. And are you over or are you under? And the other thing is, what's your trend? Are you trending up or trending down? You need to be watching those. Shop supplies. Want to make sure that you're inventorying shop supplies. And then when you do dispense those, it's a great idea to actually track those by technician. Therefore, you can tell if I've got certain technicians that are actually utilizing a lot more shop supplies than another technician. I know at my last dealership that I worked at, we ran this, and I'll never forget, I had a couple of my techs that actually had double the amount of shop supplies that they were requesting. One of them especially was gloves, shop gloves, right? So make sure you're checking that, review it by tech, and sit down and review it with them so that they actually know that you're taking a look at it and watching. The other thing on shop supplies that's important, and it's not mentioned here, is to make sure that you're actually charging shop supplies. I suggest that you do it at least once a month, and quite honestly, in some stores, you can even do it more often. Do some sort of a repair order audit. Pull out 20 or 25 repair orders and look at shop supplies. Make certain that indeed they are being charged on the repair order. Also look at what is the percentage. And let's just say if you charge 10% of labor as your shop supplies, make certain that it's at 10%. Because if your store, if your advisors have the ability to go in and actually reduce shop supplies or even remove it off the repair order, in a lot of cases, they might reduce it, but not completely remove it. And some advisors have told me that, well, as long as I leave something on there, nobody will really notice. So you do need to double check that. I have found in a lot of stores, there's a lot of money that's being reduced in shop supplies and it's not being caught. Policy adjustment log. You need to have a policy adjustment log. Really can be pretty simple. You need to have an advisor's name or number, technician's name or number on that. The reason why we had policy adjustment. Did somebody make a mistake? Was it a comeback? Did we damage something? And or was it just strictly goodwill? As well as how much did it cost? And we have found that by having a log where all policy is logged, now all of a sudden the awareness goes up. Advisors are paying more attention and the manager's paying more attention. So it's a great way to go through and raise the awareness. Productive versus support personnel. We said you should have 2 productive to every 1 support person. And in that support person role, we typically do not count service porters as well as shuttle drivers. I suspect in the near future, we're probably going to see more support personnel due to this COVID-19 virus that's out there, just for the simple reason of cleaning, sanitizing, and so forth. But definitely want to pay attention to that whenever you're watching your expenses. So ultimately, in watching and controlling expenses, what's your goal? Are you wanting to save your way into profitability? So the question I have is, are your expenses too high or is your gross profit too low? And I tell you what I find is that most stores have been watching expenses for a long time. And don't get me wrong, there's always some room for improvement, but in most cases, the expenses usually really aren't out of the line, or at least not very much. What I do find is the gross is too low. And so that's going to be the key. And obviously, we're going to be talking, my next essentials are going to be talking about increasing gross profits. But that's really the goal for stores out there, is that let's get more gross. Let's do a better job, grow the gross. Essential number 2, improve profit margins. Retail labor gross profit is 75%. And by the way, this basically is for domestics and imports, should be 75 to 77%. For highline luxury cars, they should really be somewhere in the 77 to as high as 81 and 82% out there. What I find, though, is that a lot of stores are short and fall short of that. So there's a couple of ways to improve that number. Before we get to that, I want to bring up one other thing that I find, especially recently, that a lot of people don't realize is happening. I was at a Honda store, it's been a couple of months ago. They had 8 main shop technicians, and they had either 4 or 5 hourly techs that were working in their express area. Well, this dealer and service manager, I'm going through their numbers. We came up with labor gross profit margin, and they were at 80%. And so the dealer and service manager both said, yeah, Ken, we're doing a really good job. We've been in the high 70s for a long time, and we're actually at 80 now. So, we're doing good in that area. And I said, well, I got a question for you. Your 5 express techs out there, where are they being charged? Are they being charged against the cost of sale of labor, or are they being put in other salaries and wages? And the dealer says, gosh, Ken, I'm not sure. You look at the service manager, and the service manager goes, oh, they're being put in other salaries and wages. Well, you know what? That's over on the expense page. So that doesn't even come out of the gross profit. So therefore, his gross was actually being misrepresented. We went ahead and did the math in his store. And once we took all of the wages paid to the hourly techs and applied that against the cost of sale of labor, it now knocked him down in the high 60s. So it literally was over a 10 percentage point drop by putting his hourly techs in there. You know what? Hourly techs are more common now than they were 5 and 10 years ago. And so one of the things I really encourage you to do is, if you don't know where the wages are going, make sure that you ask your office manager or controller and see where they're landing. And indeed, if they are landing in your other salaries and wages, very, very important to go through and do the math. Figure out what have we paid them for last month, and go in and reduce that from your labor sales, so you can get a true cost of labor and a true labor margin. Effective labor rate. Effective labor rate is a big deal. And what we're running across more and more at stores is that the effective labor rate is actually pretty low. And an example was, if I'm in a store that my door rate is $120 an hour, but yet my effective labor rate's at 75 or 80, we're way off. And what I find is happening is that, let's just say every year the store is raising their door rates, but they're not raising their maintenance rates. In other words, what they do some of their maintenance and their menu items at. And so therefore, that spread just keeps getting larger and larger and larger. So a real key to help you improve that labor margin and ultimately reach those goals is to make sure that you've got variable labor rates in place, which most stores do. However, what I find at most stores is that maintenance rate hasn't been changed. And here's an example. Go back to my store that's got the $120 an hour door rate. Their maintenance rate is at $80 an hour. So in other words, let's say like a transmission service or a transmission flush. They basically charge an hour. They pay their tech an hour to do that. Well, they're doing it at $80 an hour. And so when the techs go through and do that job, if we could actually get a little bit more money for that job, rather than say $250, if we could get $260 for that job, my effective labor rate just went up $10. So make sure that you go through and look at all your maintenance rates. You want to micromanage them and make sure that you're increasing those as often, if not even more, than you're doing on your door rates. Want to eliminate unauthorized discounts. We also want to go through and decrease the average cost of sale. And how do you do that? Through effective dispatching, as well as making sure that you've got B and C techs and that they're also doing their share of what we call the low skill type of work. So gross profit is a matter of discipline, paying attention, and actually doing it. Essential number 3, want to increase sales per repair order. Want to implement a service drive walk around. We talked about this last week. The key factor on this service drive walk around, I'm going to say, is what we call an interactive walk around. What I find in most stores that we go into is the service advisor walks away from the customer at his desk, goes to the car by himself, does a walk around looking strictly for damage, gets the mileage, maybe scans the VIN or gets the VIN, then walks back to his desk. Well, think about what just happened. If you don't have that customer with you, first off, it's much harder to get their attention back, because you know what, when you walked away, they now start focusing on something else, maybe what they're going to do that day at work or that night or at lunch, or maybe they pull their cell phone out. So make sure you have an interactive walk around with your customers. That certainly will add 0.2 of an hour per repair order, if not more in some stores. Make sure that we're presenting a maintenance menu. The key on that maintenance menu is twofold. One, it needs to be consistent. We need to do it with every customer every time. And number 2, it's equally important, is to make sure that you're using features and benefits to build value. Unfortunately, most service advisors that I watch or observe on a service drive, the good news is that quite a few of them are telling their customers that there's certain maintenance that needs to be done on their vehicle. The bad news is they're not using features and benefits to build value. They're merely telling them, hey, this is important service. Your vehicle's got 64,000 miles on it. We should do it. It's $400. Do you want to do it? Well, they're going to get a lot of no's. So as a service manager, it's your job to make sure that you are teaching them how to actually present features and benefits to build value. Because if they build value, now the customer feels good about their decision. Whether they say yes or say no, they feel good about it. If you don't build value, what happens? The customer might walk away saying to himself, you know, every time I come in this service department, Ken just tries to sell me something. And you know why? Because that's all I was doing, was just selling you something. I was not actually building value. So features and benefits to build value, very, very important to service managers. And ultimately, if it's something that you're not comfortable training people on, there's lots of material that's out there. And of course, obviously, that's one of the things that we do here at Dealer Pro Training. Advise on the inspection results. Very important. As you can see, this has the highest amount of hours per repair order that gets added. 0.5 we find, actually in some stores even more than that. So what are the important factors on that? First off, that we do a great inspection every time on every car. Secondly, that we advise that customer early on during the repair process. I've seen in a lot of stores where car comes in for an oil change and tire rotation. Well, we don't get the inspection results back to the advisor until that car is being pulled back up on the service drive and is completely finished. Well, it's too late. We've got to get that information back to the advisor. So it needs to be done on every car every time, and have a great inspection, get that to the advisor, typically within the first 10 minutes. Teach your advisors to sell. And I touched on that already a little bit earlier up on the maintenance menu portion, but the features and benefits. Truly teach your advisors. They need to have confidence. If they don't have confidence in what they're presenting to customers, it comes across to the customer, and also they're going to get more no's. Service management. Accountability and goal setting is a huge portion of your job and what you need to be doing daily. Make sure on the accountability side that you share what your expectations and goals are with your entire staff. Then in turn, make sure that you monitor it. And whenever they're above, obviously we want to praise them, tell them they're doing well. But you know what? When they're falling short, we need to let them know. You got to give them feedback on every transaction. And then help them, train them, show them, and tell them what to do and how to do it next time. Essential number 3, raise sales per repair order. Maintenance menu presentations. As you transition to a post-pandemic concerns, consider your current walk-around process and menu presentation. So what are we currently doing now, as well as how is that going to change going forward? So going forward, potentially, we might be doing phone presentations remotely, right? Kristen touched on that a little bit earlier with some of the apps that are out there. But this is something that I think is definitely going to increase going forward with people. Video presentations remotely using Zoom as well. So again, we've got to think about how is this going to change? Let's be prepared for it. Let's train our people on it and actually get it put in place. Tablets. We're going to use tablets on the service drive. A lot of stores do. Some stores don't due to all kinds of difficulties with the internet as well as other items. But another tool that certainly can help. Printed menus. Do you want to do a printed menu and hand it to a customer? Do we want to do a printed menu that we can email to a customer? Email and text for customers as well. So these are all things that are going to obviously be changing that you need to be looking at in the future. Accountability, daily performance tracking with our technicians and advisors. We need to share their prior day's performance with them every single day. We like having performance boards posted so that we can post service advisors as well as technicians' results from the prior day and have them posted in an area so that everyone can see them, so we can talk about it. We want to do weekly repair order analysis. I'm going to back up to that daily performance tracking. We also want to do daily meetings with our service advisors. And it's something that can happen. Typically, we like to see it first thing in the morning. Should be fairly short and sweet, 2 to 3 minutes. We want to talk about what they did yesterday, give them some strategy on how to do better today, and you need to keep it positive and upbeat. If you think about it, you don't want to go out there and beat a service advisor up first thing in the morning, right before you open the door. What kind of attitude is he going to be in whenever that first customer comes up? So you got to be a cheerleader, pump them up, but also make sure and train them and hold them accountable. The weekly repair order analysis. Want to make sure that you're going through and pulling repair orders on a weekly basis and sharing that information with service advisors and technicians. We want to praise people on a job well done. Look for positive things. Truly, I have found in some cases a lot of people are always looking for what the other person's doing wrong. Well, certainly we've got to let them know when they are doing something wrong and help them out, right? But you also got to look for a job well done. Look for positive things to basically reinforce with these people and pump them up. Counsel and coach underperformers daily. They truly need to know exactly what you expect out of them. When they fall short, got to coach them, as we've talked about already. And coaching people is a big, big deal. It truly involves good communication and feedback, but ultimately, you got to make sure that you provide them the tools so that they can be successful. Goal setting, big, big deal, right? We need to go through and set sales goals for our advisors and techs. We talked about that already on a daily basis. We need to measure those results daily. And we also want to hold the daily sales meetings I mentioned earlier with our advisors. So now let's talk about essential number 4. Ultimately, essential number 4 is increasing the number of repair orders. Well, how are we going to do it? First off, we need to sell more appointments. You see the 57% up there in parentheses? J.D. Powers, Phone Pops basically shared this information with us, and we thought it was very applicable for our meeting today. But basically, Phone Pops is a company you can hire. They'll call up, phone shop your store in various departments. They found that whenever they called service advisors and asked them how much something cost and or what do you think's wrong with my car, that 57% of the time, the service advisor did not even ask for an appointment. So merely the advisor would spend time on the phone answering all the customers' questions, giving them all these answers and so forth. In some cases, I've seen them spend 10 or 12 minutes on the phone and then never even ask the customer for an appointment. So obviously, we got to ask for the appointment, and that's a way to increase number of repair orders. Fleet business. Fleet business, there's some stores out there right now that do a way better job of fleet business than others. There's some stores I've gone into that fleet business accounts for 25 to 30% of the overall service department's business. However, there's other service departments that I look at their financials and talk with them about their business, and they're telling me that they don't do any fleet business. So Fleet business is a big opportunity to increase the number of repair orders. All kinds of fleets. You got schools, you got hospitals, you got local businesses. So think about all of those, figure out ways to gain their trust, gain their business, and especially with what we're talking about now, if we're going to do more pickup and deliveries, it makes it even that much easier. I mean, how convenient can that be for a customer? You know, let's just say they're a school teacher or a business. You show up in the morning, you pick their vehicle up, you have it returned back to them prior to the end of the day. That's about as convenient as it gets. Add technicians. Well, why do we need to add technicians? If we increase the number of repair orders, do we actually have the capacity with our existing staff to get the extra work done? You know what? Most stores, they don't. So you got to think about that. If you have a goal that you're going to increase the number of repair orders, or if you're going to increase your sales per repair order a certain amount, you've got to do the math and figure out how many technicians do I need? Because if you don't have the techs, in a lot of cases, service advisors are not going to sell any additional work if they don't feel that they can get it done. So make sure that you got enough capacity and add technicians. Maintain a marketing plan. Everybody needs a marketing plan. A mistake I made a long time ago when I first became parts and service director is my dealer says, Ken, you got X number of dollars to spend a year for your marketing and merchandising. I says, okay, great. So I took that number and I divided it by 12 and I spent that same amount every single month. Well, that was a huge mistake because in my marketplace, our summer months were quite a bit busier than our winter months were. But yet I was still offering discounts and specials to get more people in the door. Well, you know what? We were jammed. We were slammed, right? We were backed up 3, 4, 5 days, or some cases more. So we couldn't do the extra work. So my point being is make sure you have a marketing plan and/or planner. And one of the things to look at is what are my busy months and what are my slow months? And you really want to concentrate your efforts to get more repair orders in the door in those slower months. Scheduling first appointments. This is a big deal. It's been, 6 months to 8 months ago. I saw a survey that was done out there on domestic car dealers as to what percentage of new and used car buyers bought a vehicle from a domestic store that went to an independent shop for an oil change. So in other words, they bought the car at a franchise dealer, but they didn't go back there for the oil change. And the number was either 62 or 64%, somewhere around the mid-60s. So if you think about it, if somebody comes in and buys a vehicle from you the very first time, they don't know anything about you or your service department, basically 6 out of 10 of them aren't even going to come back in to see it. They're going to go get that oil change done at their independent shop that's done all of their other cars. So it's hugely important that you have a process in place to make that first service appointment. It needs to be sales department, needs to be bringing that customer back, making an introduction to service. And you know what, right now, that's your service advisor's kind of one and only time to win that customer over. So you need to have some scripts in place. You need to train your advisors on those scripts so that when they do walk that customer back, that advisor sounds like a superstar and can really represent your service department well and convince that customer that they need to bring their car in to see you for all of our oil changes and so forth. So make sure that you have some sort of first appointment process out there. Get that in place. Lost sales follow-up. Obviously, following up on lost sales is a smart thing to do. With that being said, I found that very few stores do it. And there's all kinds of reasons as to why. You know, some stores say we don't have time. Some stores just haven't made the time or put together a process. The one thing I encourage all of you to do, if you aren't doing this, at a bare minimum, you should follow up on anything that was safety or reliability related. Safety or reliability must do. Why is that? If you think about it, the customer's got to get it done. Now, they might have to do it today. They might not have to do it at your store, but they have to get that done. What I mean by that, if tires are worn out or brakes are worn out, those are safety, reliability items. You got to get it done, right? So why did they tell you no? Well, in some cases, they need to think about it. Maybe they don't make snap decisions on something like that. Other cases, maybe they want to call around and check prices. Some other times, maybe they want to check their finances. What we have found at Dealer Pro is that usually in about 3 days' time, they've had the opportunity to go through those reasons as to basically what research or whatever they want to do before making a decision. So we like making a lost sale follow-up call that customer 3 days afterwards, and let's ask for the sale again. We have scripts for those, been very successful, and typically we find that we can get usually 3 or even 4 out of 10 of those customers to come back in and get that job done at our store. So another way, appointment reminders. When we talked a little bit about this earlier, but appointment reminders, we need to be reminding customers to bring their vehicle back into us. And obviously we can do it by calling, we can do it through emails, we can do it through text and so forth, but we need to remind customers to bring their vehicles back into us for oil changes, for state inspections, as well as recalls and so forth. We want to make sure we call all no-shows. Need to have a process in place. It can be cashiers, it could be a BDC, but somebody needs to make sure that we're calling all of our no-shows. Here's the service reminders I talked about. Want to make sure recalls are a big one out there, and typically a recall is a good money maker for your stores. State inspections, you get them in, sell them extra work. Customer retention process. So what is your customer retention process? What are you currently doing to retain your customers? Are you providing a great experience for the customer? Do you have a convenient appointment process? When they do come in and wait, do you have a nice facility and amenities for them to use while they're there at your store? Do you have a reasonable turnaround time or repair time to get their vehicle completed? How about your pricing? Are you priced fairly? Do you set the next appointment? Those are all just some examples of your retention process. Because if you think about it, every interaction that you have with that customer is building on a relationship. And it can build one of 3 ways. It could be negative, it could be neutral, and it could be positive. You want them all to be positive. Because if you have any that are just neutral, why would that customer want to come back? They might find someplace that's closer. They might find someplace that's cheaper. You got to make sure that we're providing a positive experience for every customer visit. So ask yourself, what is your retention processes? What are you doing? And what needs to change? Convenient hours of operation. Kristen talked about it a little bit earlier, but some stores are actually expanding hours of operation by spreading employees' work times out. You ultimately got to make sure that you're open for business when your customers want to do business with you. Don't set your store hours up on what's convenient for you. Set them up on what's convenient for your customer. And I touched on this a little bit earlier, but make sure you have some sort of an owner retention marketing planner. Things that you're doing weekly, things that you're going to do monthly, things that you're going to do seasonal, right? Maybe it's a spring inspection, maybe it's an annual inspection. So you obviously need to have seasonal marketing out there as well for your people. So customer retention. I really like this slide. On the left-hand side, you'll see percentages from 0 to 100. Down across the bottom, you'll see years, first year, second year, all the way through the 6th year. Then you see the graph. Well, the graph is the highest in the first year, and then it declines. What that graph represents is how many people are coming back to a franchised dealer for any type of service work, any type. And as you can see, in the first 3 years, that customer averages spending $150 a year. Well, and then afterwards, in other words, years 4, 5, and 6 and on, the customer averages spending $550 a year. Way more than $150, right? And obviously, this is where we want all of our customers to make sure that indeed they're coming back. However, if you look at that 6th year, what is it? 22% of the people are actually coming back. We have lost almost 80% of the customers at a typical franchise store. So retention is huge, everybody. Make certain that we're satisfying our customers. Make certain that we're doing a great job communicating with them about what we do, how we do it. Make sure we're using features and benefits to build value. And with that, Kristen, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Great content. So talking about market share, now is a great time to grab more market share from the aftermarket, those independent shops that are out there, right? You know, they've also had to alter their staffs. They've had to alter their hours of operation. And so reminding your customers about the fact that you do service all makes and models. It's a terrific time to capitalize on kind of the mix-ups and kind of a little bit of the chaos of customers not knowing where to go for services. I'm sure you've all retrieved a lot of calls at your dealership, people just calling to see if you're open and what services you provide. And some other folks have had to limit the types of services they provide. So in that same vein, when we talk about increasing the number of ROs coming through the service drive, we really want you, again, we've talked about this the last couple of weeks, to focus on outbound calls. The first call would be just to make a friendly call to check in with your customers. You're not trying to sell them anything. It's just a really great way to reach out, do something kind. You know, we're all looking for maybe a little bit of social interaction as well. Maybe that's a benefit to somebody who hasn't really talked to many people, but just check in on them. We gave you a script last week that kind of covered that. Checking in, letting you know we're here, letting you know our hours, that we are doing business, all the things you're doing to disinfect and keep them safe if they do decide to do business with you. So outbound calling program would be great right now. Calling your recalls. I've seen a lot of people post on LinkedIn and Twitter that they're all caught up on their recalls. So what do I do next? And so you can start to look at, again, implementing and executing some new processes and some new ideas. But this week, I'm going to share with you a script on making an outbound call if they've got regular maintenance due or if they do have a recall due and you're not caught up on those. So I'll share that with you here shortly. And then offering timely service specials. As Ken mentioned, typically you're offering spring specials, alignment specials. You move it into the summer. Some of you may not open until another 4, 6, 8 weeks. We don't know. But some of your customers are going to be really backed up on recommended and required services that they need for their vehicles. Be sure you get those materials together. Get your website up and running. We've got a couple specials we'd like to also suggest that you make. A lot of dealers are already doing this. You're providing some sort of disinfection or sanitizing of their vehicle. Many are doing it complimentary. We've also seen some that are charging $29.95, $59.95, depending on the type of and how comprehensive that sanitation is. And I would also suggest that you can offer a good, better, best program there with regard to disinfecting and sanitizing. There are so many products out there. On next week's forum on Friday, we're going to share with you some more specifics about disinfecting, sanitizing companies. We've done a lot of research ourselves, so we've got some resources there. We know who's delivering and who's sold out. And then another special that you can consider, use the term road trip ready, especially in the RV industry. They're talking about, you know, this is going to be a fantastic year for folks to fire up the RV, get it ready to go. And so RV dealers should be feeling pretty good about the kind of volume they're going to see in their service departments. And so we'd like automotive to get ready for that too. People are going to be hitting the road. As I've read a few articles talking about that. Flights are limited, budgets are limited. So get a road trip ready special together that you can sell to your customers as well. And if you are going to put flyers on the drive, make sure it's something they can take with them. Make sure you've got your dealership name, phone number, in case they don't buy while they're there. They have some way to call you back if that is a special that they're interested in. And then, of course, you want to update all your point of purchase materials, your website, and so on and so forth. But back to those outbound calls, what another great way to make an outbound call to let them know about your road trip ready special. If you've got that kind of time right now to do it, go out and grab those customers. I don't think you can afford to sit back and expect them to start flocking in the door. I've talked to a few dealers that have told me that their customers are still concerned, even though they're open, even though they can come to their service department, they're just not doing it. So driving more appointments, how do we do that? Those of you that are current customers of ours, this would be a good refresher for you to talk about what is the importance of the phones to your operations. Well, it's huge. And Ken talked about earlier some of the advisor statistics on what advisors do and don't do well. And I would say BDC reps also. Many of you have BDCs, I'm guessing, on this call. And reevaluate your BDC. What are they saying to customers? Are they truly taking control of the conversation and setting appointments and getting more folks in the door? And now that might be tricky, but be ready. Get them trained up. Give them a refresher course. So their primary mission when answering the phone is to sell an appointment. Now, right now, those priorities might be also equally important to put them at ease. You want to make sure that your reps that are talking on the phone have word tracks to use. And again, I shared one last week. I'm going to share another one this week about how to put your customer at ease. What are you doing to keep them safe when they do come to do business with you. Again, we've said it multiple times, but building their confidence. All right. It's also to provide a resolution to the customer. Some of the calls you get could be an emergency call. And we're going to talk a little bit about where a customer's mind is when they're making that phone call to your service department. Your job is also to get on and off the phone as efficiently as possible without rushing the customer. So efficiently, we want to be good listeners. We want to address their primary concern. What is it that we need to help them alleviate their concern and make sure they know we're going to provide a resolution. But we also don't want to be the Siri of the automotive world. You all know is if you let a customer control that conversation, they ask one question, it leads to another question and another question. And before you know it, you're in all sorts of trouble, giving them diagnosing and you're giving them pricing. And that's not the direction you want to go. And of course, it's to exceed your customer expectations. And this gets lost a lot of times on the phone because I don't think enough, if I can say it, enough dealers and GMs really engage on this and say, hey, you know what, these phones are extremely important. Let's constantly monitor, hold people accountable in our BDC or our advisors or our cashier or our warranty clerk that picks up the slack when we get busy. These folks have to be consistent and they have to exceed customer expectations. That's their first impression of you when they call on the phone a lot of times. So why do you need a phone process? And this is a really telling statistic. I like it a lot. For every 5 service calls coming into your service drive, now this is the J.D. Power and Associates study that was done, 1 is calling for an appointment, 1 is calling on the status of their vehicle, and 3 are calling for information. So when you look at your numbers in your dealership, that's a staggering number. That means 20% of your calls coming in are that appointment call. My 13-year-old son could probably take that call and get him on your schedule for you. That means 80% of your calls would include status and information. If we back out the status calls, that leaves 60%, the majority of your call volume. You have to have professional sales skills in order to handle those calls. And we're going to break down what those calls are all about. Those are your opportunities for growing your RO count, your traffic count. Whoop. So what would happen if you converted just 1 of those 3 information calls into an appointment? Of course, your appointments would double. So what are the information calls? Well, I'd imagine you can guess what you're getting a lot of right now. Like I said earlier, are you open? How do I get my car to you? What's the free pickup and delivery involved? Does it cost? All of those things. Do you have word tracks for your folks to use for those answers for your customers right now? And so in a typical market, when we don't have this situation going on, we're calling about the cost. Still, I'm sure they're asking those questions now. I'm having a problem. What do you think is wrong with it, right? They want you to give them those quick answers to what they see are very simple questions. So how you handle these calls has a direct impact on the number of your ROs that you're writing, your customer satisfaction. You've got to make sure that they feel confident that you are able to provide a resolution to the issue that they're calling you about. That has to happen in a matter of seconds on that phone call. Customer retention. And it also has an impact on the dealership's profitability. When you are advising customers on the phone, in the drive, putting them first in everything that you do by recommending safe and reliable ways of maintaining the performance of their vehicle, that's what drives your profitability in service and parts. By making sure your folks can communicate that to your customers and give them choices. And it's no different on the telephone. So customers ask for information because they fear the unknown. This is a big one right now. So again, we can't say enough. Ensure that your customers understand the protocols that you're taking to keep them safe if they're going to do business with you. All right. They're wanting to know how much it's going to cost. Again, this is going to come to the forefront. People have lost jobs. People's budgets might be a little bit tighter. So that question is going to come up. Does your team know how to still maintain control of the conversation and work on getting that appointment? Are there going to be times when you're going to have to give the customer a price, or you're going to have to give the customer a little bit of information about what's happening with their vehicle? Possibly. But that is the rule in most of the stores that we go in. It's not the exception, and it should be the exception because customers need help and they need you to get them on your schedule. So the best way to address their customer fears is to offer them an appointment. And I can't tell you how often, and Ken already mentioned this statistic, that 57% number, how often we phone shop customers when we come in site and do an analysis, and we play that recording out for the management team. And I would say 90% or more of the time, we do not get an appointment asked of the advisor when we're calling to schedule something. Usually we hear something like, so did you want to bring it in? things like that. And so I'm going to skip over this slide, even though these are really great statistics. You'll have these archived on YouTube. We're coming up on the hour mark, so I want to get to some of the additional information that I had for you this week. And then next week, we will dig some more into appointment setting and phone skills. But the challenges of answering service calls, it is not an easy thing to do. You can't take a sales BDC rep and turn them into a service BDC rep overnight. It does require professional training. And so they have to make a positive impression in a short amount of time. You have to remember that they have to take control of that conversation. And out of all of these, I would say that's probably the most lacking skill of anyone who's answering your phones right now. They don't know how to take control of that conversation. They sit back on their heels. The customer asks and says whatever they want. And as I said earlier, they ask things like, did you want to bring it in? Or when do you want to bring it in? As opposed to giving the customer choices and directing them where you want them to go, which is coming into your store. All right, so scripts, extremely important. We at Dealer Pro don't particularly believe in cookie cutter scripts for each of our stores. So they build them on their own with our guidance. You know, if I train you on something, and Ken speaks a little bit differently than I do. So if I'm not comfortable with it, you can bet I'm going to trash it as soon as you leave, and I'm going to add my own twist to it. So we have them write their own scripts, and you should do that as well. Have your employees write the script with the guidance that you're going to give them as to what they need to say to the customers on these calls. Okay, so a script is a process that when all employees follow it, it provides the customer with a consistent experience every time. And guess what? That builds trust. And that is one of the highest priorities that you should have for your service and parts employees, is building trust with your customers that you're a great place to do business. Your folks are likable, your processes are likable, and you have a lot of value to bring to the table. All right, so this is just a sample of a lot of the scripts that we like you to have in your toolbox, so to speak. And so I want to share this one with you. We had the one last week where it was an outbound call right now to reboot service traffic. And this one is for those folks that do have maintenance due and do have a recall due. And so I'm not going to read it to you, but talks about, we really address some things up front, again, to give the customer confidence in doing business with you. That is of utmost importance. And then you can add in here the particular features that you're offering. If you're offering loaners and you're offering free pickup and delivery, if you have a no contact zone, talk about that. And then you're going to ask for that appointment at the end. With our free pickup and delivery, I can get this recall completed for you today or tomorrow. Do either of those days work for you? And then you move on to two advisors 2 times from there. So the materials, we keep adding to the resources and the free materials we want to share with you to help you as you make the turn into being proactive with your team, with your customers, and in driving more appointments. So we have 6 weeks of these online forums posted on our YouTube channel. You can go to youtube.com, type in Dealer Pro Training. We're offering you 30 days of online fixed ops selling skills content. There are 88 chapters for advisors and managers. They take quizzes, they get certified. You've got 30 days to get through whatever content you think is most important. I would encourage you to get your advisors on that basic, the Advisor Pro Basic course. And that hits phone skills pretty heavily on that course. That'd be a great place to start. We have white papers and podcasts and webinars on our website at dealerprotraining.com. There happens to be one that's been very popular, How to Accelerate Profits Through a Slowdown. I just gave you that outbound calling script number 2 for your advisors. And if you want to qualify, we have a new 3-day in-dealership reboot training program. We're offering this for our directors of training to come out to your store for 3 days. We're going to ask you to fill out a form to qualify for that program. It's a significant savings off of our typical training fees. If you're interested in that, you can email me at kwilliams@dealerprotraining.com, or you can call me. That's my cell. We're also going to be sending you a separate email with that, but if you want to get in line for that now, go ahead and email me and let me know. We will have to call you. We got to talk to you for a little bit about this and qualify some things and figure out if this 3-day reboot program makes sense in your store. It is live, face-to-face, in-dealership training, and we're offering it through the month of May 1st through 31st. And we have a limited number of stores that we're going to be visiting in order to help them make that turn and get your service drive switched back on. It is more than a flip of a switch. Some of these new processes and ways of doing business, if you want our help, we're happy to provide it. So with that, there's a lot of fast talking, but we appreciate all of you. And again, thanks for getting on. We hope these are terrific resources. We'd love to get your feedback. If you're doing anything fantastic that you want me to share on next week's forum, if you do any of these videos, send them to me. I would love to know that you're taking action and implementing and getting more savvy about reaching your customers in bigger and better ways. So have a terrific weekend and look for emails from us. Check your spam folders. We'll have another forum next Friday at 3 p.m. Take care.